The other thing that needs to be said about this ruling is that in publicly dressing down Judge Schindlein and removing her from the case, they're not only punishing her for looking at evidence and ruling on the racist character of Stop and Frisk, but they're sending out a wider, chilling message that anybody who has concerns like this should stop and think before they take a stand on it and stand against these racist policies. Now, we're not only out here today denouncing this decision and saying no more to Stop and Frisk, we're calling on people to continue the resistance and carry it forward. We call on people to go into their neighborhoods on Saturday, mobilize people to speak out against Stop and Frisk, to march against it, to rally against it. We call on religious leaders to address this injustice in their sermons. And we call on students and faculty to act on Monday when their schools open back up. One more thing I want to say. Again, this ruling underscores how deeply embedded in this society white supremacy is. And it's why I say it will take revolution, nothing less, to uproot it once and for all. It also illustrates the crucial necessity for mass, determined resistance to not only Stop and Frisk, but the whole new Jim Crow program of mass incarceration and all its consequences. That's a resistance that the Stop Mass Incarceration Network was called into existence to build, and something that we're going to work on. So thank you.
Any questions?
We'll take questions, but first let's bring up Noche. This is Noche Diaz, a young man who answered the call for civil disobedience to stop and frisk.
Noche, give us your name and spell it, and which organization you're with.
Noche Diaz, N-O-C-H-E-D-I-A-Z. I'm with the NYC Rev Club. So, what this court ruling has told us is not that Stop and Frisk is a more complicated legal issue than we initially said. It shows that every time our youth walk down the streets and face down the brutality of some cop, some criminal who hides behind a badge, that they're facing not just some rogue or out-of-control police department, but a whole system that has no future for them. For a whole system that tells them again and again, if you're a black youth like Trayvon Martin, you can be killed and there will be no justice. If you're stopped and frisked having your basic rights violated, that can go on and there will be no justice, and the courts will not have your back. As Carl Dix said, you have no rights that this country is bound to protect. And that is why we in the Revolution Club say, it's up to us. It's not going to come from some savior. No, there would be no mayoral campaign talking about Stop and Frisk if it was not for the fact that thousands of people took to the streets and demanded an end to it. And that's why it was in the law, the lawsuit was in the court in the first place, and that's the only way any amount of justice is going to come out of anything, is if we ourselves take responsibility to fight this. And then yes, we say we have to fight these outrages as part of building up the strength to end this system once and for all, because this has been going on for 400 years. Time's up.
Okay, we've got one more speaker. Debra Sweet, National Director of World Can't Wait.
I was one of the people who stepped forward more than 2 years ago now.
Give us your name and
D-E-B-R-A-S-W-E-E-T, Director of WorldCan'tWait.net.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was one of the people who stepped forward out of dozens more than 2 years ago to conduct mass civil disobedience non-violently in front of the 28th precinct up in Harlem. Then we went to Brooklyn and we went to Queens, and more than 60 people were arrested in this campaign. We've defeated all those criminal charges brought by the city of New York to lock us up for several years for nonviolent protest. In the wake of this, 50,000 people marched last summer against Stop and Frisk. There's been protest everywhere in all the boroughs. People blowing the whistle on Stop and Frisk, demanding an end to this unconstitutional, illegal, unjust practice of stopping people, breaking their Fourth Amendment rights, conducting unreasonable searches with no suspicion. And this has to end, whether it's by federal court decree or it's in the process of another election. The will of the people here is this ends.
Yeah.
No court can sanctify it. No politician can say it's okay.
No.
No NYPD officers out on the street can carry it out justly. It must be ended. And in sympathy and solidarity with all the young people and even the older Black and Latino people my age who are regularly stopped by the NYPD, I'm putting the call out now that everyone who looks like me, who doesn't get regularly stopped and frisked, anyone else in this city with a conscience steps forward now and rejoins this movement to end stop and frisk now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
Yes.
Okay, so if there are any questions,
Yeah, since you guys did bring up a couple of the forthcoming election, do you feel that that may resolve this regardless of the court ruling?
no, it won't resolve it. I mean, we need to recognize stop and frisk becoming the keystone of the NYPD policing policy was itself a reform from the street crimes unit before it, when people took to the streets after the murder of Amadou Diallo in a hail of 43 shots. They forced the NYPD and the city authorities to say, oh, we'll reform that. We'll bring in a different way to police. That different way was expanding stop and frisk to the whole department, which brought you to the point of 600,000 plus people being stopped and frisked, Blacks and Latinos being criminalized and demonized. So if we sit back and allow the political process to do what it's going to do, it will be a reform that keeps the essence of the criminalization of our youth together. That is something that is unacceptable, it is outrageous, and must not be accepted.
Any other questions? Okay.
How long is it going to take? That's my question.
Thank you,
Slavery was
everybody.
ended.